Greetings. Welcome back to another session, Dorsey's Resource. First, before we get started, I'd like to give a disclaimer. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her homework and research regarding the matter being discussed. This information is not to be construed as legal advice. If you need to seek a professional, lawyer, consultant, securities broker, financial advisor, or whomever, please do so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource is not liable or responsible for any misuse of this information. These are simply my thoughts and opinions on the topic. With that being said, all rights are reserved. Now, I want to thank everybody for joining me. This is going to be a follow-up video about the so-called secret TDA accounts at the FRB. I'm going to go over, this video is going to be a commentary. I'm going to go over some sensitive information. Please bear with me there. It's going to be action-packed. I've got a lot of stuff to cover, and the basis of this video is I'm going to present, or at least attempt to present, evidence, but I've got to use a lot of sources because there's a lot of newbies, people who don't understand this information. So it's like I'm giving a 2 or 3 month course in a matter of less than an hour. I'm just going to give you guys like a crash course. I'm going to condense the information, but as you all can see, you'll have the websites and stuff that will equip you with the skill sets to be able to do the research on your own. Now, without further ado, okay, with that now being said, also part of this disclaimer, I wanted to add on with the type of information that I'm going over. You have the right under the Fair Use Act to share information. If you're doing a commentary or critique, I'm going to show the law at the beginning and end of the video. This is to validate the points that I am attempting to make and what I am trying to prove in this video. I have a plethora of information to go over. I'm not sure if I will have the time frame that I planned on doing this video within to cover everything to validate that these types of accounts exist. So without further ado, I want to also add on, I'm not an official spokesperson for the Federal Reserve or any of that. I'm just sharing this as a courtesy. I'm an independent researcher. I'm just like everyone else out here, but I'm just sharing with the research that I've come across. So let me go to, okay, I have an update. This was on my YouTube channel. Let me scroll down a little bit. This is from an account, Maitre Shear. They're stating that towards the bottom of the page, this is the link, there's an example of a guy who had got a tax refund and they made an error on his 1040 form. And he was saying ultimately resulting in his second refund check, it clearly demonstrated that the number with the cutoff digit is a check number and not a SSN number. I knew that. I was mainly referring to in the first video that I did the number right next to the routing number. It does appear that I was incorrect. I'm not afraid to admit that if I'm wrong, but I'm still going to prove that this type of account exists. Thank you to Maitre Shear, who gave me this update. I did look at this site previously and compare notes, and I even mentioned in my response that as I just jumped down so you guys can see in the screen capture, I did notice some of the checks had a numerical sequence that appeared to look like tax ID numbers as well. So I could still see I had some flaws that needed to be corrected. And I also mentioned in the first video, I said it appeared to be. I was just simply giving my own personal opinion. Later on, I mentioned that that was my opinion. So, but the account itself is still held at the institution. Mainly this the Department of Treasury. There's different types of the Department of Treasury, but this specific check number. And by the way, this is public domain. I typed in IRS refund check images on Yahoo so you guys can see. I'm going to scroll on the actual instruments. Some of the information has been redacted on as far as some, I guess, some people's personal information that they uploaded somehow years ago. This has been on there, but like I say, anybody can do a search on Yahoo search engine. Just type in IRS refund check images, and then you can pull this up. But this routing number right here on the left hand side is just generally only used to issue paper checks when people file taxes. You have some United States citizens that live out of the country. That's why you're seeing Australia on this particular instrument. But I'm going to use another example. And some examples were actual examples from that appeared to be faked just to give people a point of reference, like this one of these treasury sites does over here. Well, like this one does. They just basically give you like a breakdown. Let me go back. Okay, now this number that I said that I wasn't referring to this number in the upper right hand corner. I'm I'm pretty sure I already studied this instrument. The last digit is left off, but if you look at the account number, these do appear to resemble SSN numbers, but I can neither confirm nor deny. And I'll say, for the purposes of from the updated information, they appear not to be. Some of the numbers appear to be like tax ID numbers, but keep in mind, when you file for a refund based on your tax situation, and this is not tax advice either, I'm just using an example to prove that these secret accounts do exist. It's actually I talked to a unnamed source. It's actually a private account. Some people refer to as a trust account. You can call that. There's people that get into the games back and forth which type of account it is. That's like semantics. People are arguing, debating over preferences. You can look up the word private and the word secret, and they both practically mean the same thing. It's something that's unknown. It's kept hidden. So people are arguing over semantics, but it is a private account, or if you want to say secret account, that's fine. But you have to submit your social security number, which I'm going to show. This is the bombshell right here. Here's the hardcore evidence that if you really connect the pieces, when you open up a bank account, what do they ask for? Is your social security number. Well, this particular form right here with the IRS, when you're doing certain types of payments, they want you, as you can see in the upper boxes, it says your social security numbers. You see this is an area for you to write in your SSN number. So they already have our accounts at many of these institutions. So when there are certain gatekeepers or naysayers and government agents out there, or the government shields of people trying to deter you or steer you away, why did she not show you this? Why didn't that individual? Because I don't claim to be a guru. Let me say that first of all, clear my name. I'm not going to even mention this person's channel, but I'm showing you stuff they're not even showing you. If you look at my previous video and you look at one of their videos, you'll see when I showed the example from this particular site, I showed mine first. My video came out before that person, by the way. So I'm not the one to try to feed into the trolls, but I'm gonna just show you that I came out with the information. Now I can admit I was incorrect on this number at the bottom being a SSN, okay, but at the same time they didn't go into detail as far as explaining these digits at the top. It's believed to be accrued in some type of accounting ledger, or and I did see the breakdown if you want to check further, but they still didn't go as very in depth. These numbers have a source of origin. I won't spend too much time on that, on these types of on this instrument from this site. And once again, this is through a government. When people pay child support or whatever, they get the recipients, I hear, receive payments from the Internal Revenue Service, aka Department of Treasury. Is where their checks come in the form of. And the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, when you fill out the application for them, because I have been on assistance before in the past, before I started working, that they ask for your SSN number. So you got to think, with everything that happened with Wells Fargo, Equifax, just think about, how did Wells Fargo create over 2 million accounts recently? You can look up those articles online. And with Equifax, all of a sudden their CEOs, their top CEOs, sell a bunch of stocks like a pump and dump, and then all of a sudden they mention that their accounts have been compromised. So you have to really ask some serious questions when we're delving into the schematics of the so-called secret account or private account. And we go back. We're going to deal with. So once again, this number in the lower left-hand corner is mainly, there's other types of routing numbers that serve specific purposes, but when the individual was trying to imply that that there is no relation to the Federal Reserve, that the Treasury has a different system, they are connected. If you even go to the Federal Reserve site, I was going to use it as an example in this video, but I have so much stuff to cover, so you guys can do this on your own. And once again, I'm giving a disclaimer. I'm not an official spokesperson for the Federal Reserve. I'm just sharing this as a courtesy. But if you go to their website, FRB Services, they have an area where they get into savings bonds and stuff, just like that other Treasury Direct site. So there is a correlation. These routing numbers, this particular one is issued by the ABA, American Bankers Association. That's an acronym for what that stands for. And there's a connection with the Federal Reserve. That's something else that I could go over, or maybe do a separate video, but you all, from seeing the screen capture, can go online and this public domain and look up this information and connect the dots. Because with dealing with this type of information, just because individuals may have mentioned they worked in the finance department or worked in the public for a number of years, they keep the information dealing with the exemption account very secretive. And I'm going to tie in to how Harvey, this past summer, when I found out about this this particular method that people were linking their FRB accounts to PayPal, and they were paying bills off. I did see the evidence before things were shut down. I hear that the Federal Bureau of Investigation put pressure on PayPal, but PayPal had a mechanism in place that wasn't just there by coincidence, that was accepting these types of payments and dispersing the funds. Because I have the record. I saw the evidence from 3 different YouTubers who those payments were legitimate. If you understand that it's not a coincidence that PayPal's processing system, you had to upgrade, from what I understand, from an individual PayPal, you had to upgrade to a business account. I believe this guy was given an example of, and some other YouTubers, including Harvey, show the evidence where they were receiving payments. This verifies that this is a secret account, or was a secret account. They may have changed things now, of course, because it went too public, and they don't want you to know this information too. That's something else I can touch heavy on. But their website had procedures in place, and to add this private bank, you have to understand, if you understand information, IT technology, whoever set up their computer systems, that was not done just by coincidence. They could have kept it compartmentalized where only certain employees knew about it, but they had a certain amount of other set banks on there that you can choose from. Then there's a box that says click other bank, and from what I understand, you would click that. You couldn't do the verification through your private bank ledger. You had to call their number up. There was another way they would verify. And then once you completed that, then a emblem of the Federal Reserve institution would show up, and it would link to your account at the time. So this proves, I'm going to go over some more reasons to prove that this account exists, but that's the second bombshell right there. If you're paying attention to what I'm showing you, ladies and gentlemen, they're trying to hide this. Those memos that you saw this past summer where the Federal Reserve is saying they don't pay out public accounts, they're correct in a sense, because it's private, and public and private don't mix. However, those numbers were being used to, they are attached to people privately behind the scenes. I could go into more detail. There was an event I attended some years ago where they were teaching us, they were providing the education. I was being taught by the elites. That's why certain people who worked in the public, they even had high-paying jobs in finance, banking, within the banking institution. Even some lawyers, they might not know this information because it's only shared on a need-to-know basis. For example, they only teach certain types of information at certain colleges such as Yale, Cambridge, Harvard, and I hear Princeton and other collegiate universities. It's called commercial law, because there's different types of lawyers, and that college class that I mentioned that had a lot of information that I learned from the so-called sovereign movement was taught in the college class called Business and the Law. And if you're attending a certain college university, they normally have books that you can look at that break down the curriculums that that university offers, different whatever major, whatever uh, field you decide to go into, whatever craft that you decide. And that particular business and law class is geared towards students that have majors or are going into generally finance, because it contains the word law. I also forgot about people who may be going to school to become lawyers or paralegals, like if there's a law department, that class may be offered. So generally, even accounting students, because some of these different disciplines and collegiate courses can cross paths with one another, and these courses would be mandatory if you are involved in one of those majors, especially finance. From what I remember years ago at the university I attended, it was under the finance department, because you would have different department heads or teachers over specific departments. Like let's say if it's under the psychology department, for example, well, the psychology department has classes that deal with not only psychology, but classes in sociology. That's another form of a psychology class, or social diversity. And there's different names and so on that can break down into various different crafts. Just to give you all a point of reference, for people that don't understand why certain people who are even college educated might not be aware of this information. The reason I'm sharing this is so you all will have a point of reference, because as I mentioned in my previous video, I have a friend where his mother-in-law, when she goes over, when he mentions certain information that she's never heard of, she might think it's a scam or conspiracy theory, when it's just she just simply has never been taught or never crossed paths with this type of information. So please understand that it's on a need to know basis. And if you can look up commercial law, and it deals with UCC banking, certain lawyers are familiar with it, but some lawyers are not, because it was not related to their specific major, but their specific type of practice that they practice in dealing with the bar association, because there's different types of practices they can go into. As you see billboard signs for people who've been in car accidents, you have lawyers specifically for that. You have lawyers for criminal cases, for civil cases, civil matters. So I'm using this as an example so you can understand, not to delve too far away from the so-called secret account information. But that's why you have a lot of people out here who are newbies, who don't understand or have a point of reference. I'm giving you all a point of reference with this type of information. I also want to cover this gatekeeper or naysayer was talking about the number on the back of the SSN card and the birth certificate is not a bond number. First of all, with the birth certificate, it is a security instrument. They cannot deny that. And certain securities brokers, people that have securities licenses, like to become a stockbroker, even crossing into the mortgage realm. I won't delve as deep, but I'm kind of giving you guys a window to get, if for those out there that may be already aware. I know many are, but I'm giving you those who may be unaware a heads up. These are different fields that you learn this type of information. But they were reading from this QSIP on Wikipedia, and one of the videos that I was looking at, because I do study other people's work and information, by the way, and there's a section in here, okay, where they were reading, and I'm gonna jump down to this format. They were trying to prove that in order for the birth certificate to be a bond, or the back of the social security card, it had to be in a particular format. And QSIP stands for Committee on Uniform Securities Identification Procedures, or identification principle, as some would say. I was taught that at a private event, but it's mainly, they have the definition to scroll back up here: Committee on Uniform Security Identification Procedures. Now, if we scroll back down, it says, I'll jump to this section. Issuer codes are assigned alphabetically from a series that include deliberate built-in gaps for future expansion. The seventh and eighth digit identify the exact issue. The ninth is an automatically generated checksum. Some clearing bodies ignore or truncate the last digit. Now, this is key. Some clearing bodies. You have to, when you study linguistics and when you have learned about the private sector, because keep in mind, the elites were taught by their parents. You might wonder, how does this apply to this information? I'm going to go into the detail. When I just got finished explaining about the college classes or courses, when they were sent to private schools by invitation only. So let's say when they become of age and they go to a regular university with someone that's lived in the public who's never been taught this information, an elite person is going to understand this information differently because they studied out of encyclopedias, etymology dictionaries, Black's Law dictionaries. They learn, their vocabulary level is immaculate, so they're going to understand certain types of words and the grammar that we use a lot better. You have to reread some of these terms, and some of this information, like I said, is not taught in the public. It's only taught on a need-to-know basis. So you have to reread. When this is key right here, when it says some clearing bodies ignore or truncate the last digits, because she was trying to imply that because of the format on the back of the SSN card that it was not a bond number. What I can tell you is that the SSN is attached to the BC. It has a source of origin, a reason behind it. And I can definitely tell you, even though, okay, to reiterate, if I can give it to her, I can give her a heads up, or I can give her kudos for saying, okay, the birth certificate is not a bond. However, it is a security instrument. And I'm going to read this next part right here that's going to even delve, and you guys can already see. But however, the birth certificate definitely is a private issue government security. I had a friend of mine, someone I know privately, that showed me they located in the book. It's hidden, but they have to assign those QSIT numbers. They're assigned to the bond. So the SSN number is like the ones on the back, the master account, and some people call it a bond number. It's a QSIT number that is assigned to those bonds. The number on the back of our SSN card is attached to other bonds. So when people were questioning how, when they were talking about these lesser banks and lower banks and stuff, that's how you will connect some of the pieces on that. I'm not going as far in depth as I could go. That gets into a whole nother conversation, but I'm giving you all a point of reference, a source of origin, so you can visualize and understand or overstand what I'm saying. So like when we do stuff in the public, and take out a loan, for example, if you apply for a loan at a bank, they use the QSIP numbers to create the funding for us in the public. So once again, the numbers on the back of our SSN card is attached to other bonds. And even though the birth certificate may not be a legit or considered a certain type of bond, it is a form. You can look at it as a form of a bond. It is definitely a securities instrument. A security instrument is put on bonded paper, or it could be known as a bond certificate. So there is a strong relation. So this other individual, gatekeeper or naysayer, was mentioned. They read this part: the last characters of the issuer code can be letters in order to provide. So they were trying to justify, they were saying it had to be letters, that the birth certificate is not in this particular format with containing a certain amount of letters with numbers, so therefore it's not a bond. No, if you reread this specifically, this says the last three characters of the issuer code, this is a key word, can be letters. It says it doesn't have to be. You have to reread this. It's saying can be, but it doesn't have to be in that order. So in order to provide more room for expansion. So when you go back to the clearing body, see that's information elites and stuff are going to have, because they control major corporations and stuff. So they're going to have the sequential order of the database that this information is coming from when they use certain forms tied in with the DTC, or the Securities Exchange Commission. This goes very in depth, or Standard and Poor when the underwriting department and people who go to college or to get degrees in that area, they take certain types of tests, just like people take tests to become a stockbroker. You have to get your securities license. See, keyword securities. So, I'm giving you a point of reference, but that the CUSIP numbers are assigned to those bonds once they're created, and actually the birth certificate is being pledged as collateral where they create the bonds off of it. Once again, our BCs are pledged as collateral, so they create the bonds off of it. He said it's not necessarily a bond, so she is correct in a sense. However, it's used as collateral to back other bonds. And then you have something called marketable and non-marketable securities. There's different methods, and a friend of mine's wife gave me her accounting book from college, and there was a section in the book that talked about marketable and non-marketable securities in a workbook, because this is how some of these different subjects intersect with one another. To give you all, once again, I'm using the college university format as a point of reference. So I'm going to stop right here. I don't want to pontificate. I want to thank you guys for joining me at Dorsey's Resource. Once again, you can follow me on YouTube at Dorsey's Resource, on Twitter at Dorsey's Resource, and I'm on Facebook at Dorsey's Resource. Don't forget to like and hit the bell at the bottom of the video to receive updates when I come out with newer videos. Make sure you hit that bell at the bottom. Thank you very much for joining me. Until next time, take care. Peace.